My name is Rick. I'm currently 32, but was only 26 at the time of this story. I grew up in Bloomington, Minnesota, close to the Mall of America. Me and my friends would often end up there on the weekends if we had nothing better to do. It's an excellent indoor walking area because it's huge and circular. On this day, I was with two of my cousins and my girlfriend, now my wife. We'd walked around the mall for a while and decided to go down to Barnes & Noble next. On the way to the bottom floor, to aimlessly browse through some books, I started to get stomach cramps and figured I would need the bathroom very soon. Luckily, there's a bathroom in the back of Barnes & Noble, so I wouldn't have been holding my friends up in some random hallway. When we entered the store, I went straight for the back, walked hurriedly through the store and into the short back hallway, then entered the men's restroom. When I got inside, I saw that both stalls were already taken and swore quietly to myself. I headed back out into the hallway to wait for one of these guys to finish up so I could have my turn. I stood next to the drinking fountains, trying not to visibly squirm too much from my stomach pains. I waited for what seemed like quite a long time and was quickly growing impatient and getting annoyed. Finally, I heard one of the toilets flush, and I didn't even wait to hear the guy finish washing his hands before I entered and claimed the stall he just exited. It was the back stall in the corner of the room, the larger, handicap-friendly stall. I locked the door and started laying out some toilet paper on the seat cover because I think public toilets are disgusting. I finally sat down to do my business. I browsed my phone while I sat there, and time started to slip away. Embarrassingly enough, I'm slow to do my business even when it feels urgent, so I was in there for a while. As I sat there, my eyes wandered from my phone down to the floor, and I realized I could see part of this guy's shadow. The way the lights are in the bathroom, they were able to cast his shadow into my stall from under the floor gap. I realized he was moving around, at least so he hadn't passed out or anything. Then I realized the movement was a very rhythmic and steady back and forth motion, and it looked like it was probably his forearm that was doing the moving. I realized that this dude was most likely being a disgusting creep in a public bathroom stall instead of waiting until he got home to do such private activities. I started to text a group chat I was in with a bunch of friends to tell them about how awkward this situation I discovered was. Shortly after that, I finished my business, exited my stall, and headed to the sink to wash my hands. While washing my hands, another guy came into the bathroom and promptly entered the stall I just left. When I finished washing, I stuck my hands under the blow dryer thing to dry them off. While drying my hands, out of curiosity, I glanced back at the creepy dude's stall. First, I noticed feet under the stall. They were in the same position, and his pants were still around his ankles. Then, I caught something out of my peripheral vision and glanced upward toward the top of his stall. The dude was standing up, peeking over the wall at me with bulging, wide-open, glaring eyes, just staring directly at my face. I couldn't see his full expression since just his eyes and the top of his head were visible over the stall wall. When I saw this, I quickly left the restroom and found my cousins and girlfriend in Zeev to tell them about how disturbing what just happened to me was. I was laughing when I told them, mostly because I'm an awkward, nervous laugher. And even when things aren't funny, sometimes my body decides to make me laugh to ease the tension or something. They all were shocked and disturbed as well. I then decided I was going to find a manager or an employee and tell them that there was some creepy sex offender dude pleasuring himself in their bathroom. I spotted an employee and hurriedly walked towards them. They just happened to head towards the back corner of the store to the children's book area, right next to the restrooms. As they got into the children's book area, they entered an employee's only door before I could get into comfortable talking distance. I decided I'd find a different employee to tell, so I wouldn't have had to shout for this one. who was probably going to take a break or just getting off work. Then I heard a toilet flush. I immediately speed-walked back to my friends. When I reached them, I looked into the back bathroom hallway and saw a man around the corner. I identified him as the creep because of the shoes and pants he was wearing and what his hair looked like. I told them that was the guy, and they all looked at him while I looked away. I nonchalantly watched him through the corner of my eye as he walked to the front of the store, not getting in line to buy anything. As he got into the main walkway between all the aisles, he veered awkwardly around a clearance table full of items and walked directly towards us. This was extra creepy because his shortest path to exit the store wouldn't have made him walk directly past us. He intentionally walked through our group and made us shuffle to the side. He walked past without doing anything and then exited the store. I avoided eye contact, so I'm not sure if he was staring at me or not. We all agreed that what just happened was extremely gross and disturbing. I thought about telling an employee, but it was a weekend and the store was very busy. I was sort of embarrassed to explain what had happened to an employee in front of tons of random strangers, and the guy had already left, so there probably wasn't much that could have been done about it at that point. Anyway, we left Barnes and Noble and then walked around the mall a little more before we left. The next half hour or so, we couldn't stop thinking about how weird and gross that all was, though, and I started wondering if he was standing up to watch me wash and dry my hands at the sinks. Couldn't he have also been watching me in my bathroom stall that was sharing a wall with his? I hope that wasn't the case, but I think there's a good chance it was. He likely had seen me with my pants down while he was doing his special activity, and he may have even read my phone screen as I was texting my friends about him. Hopefully, that guy got caught for something shortly after the run-in I had with him. If not, it's kind of scary to think he may have moved on to something worse. This happened a few years ago, when I was an 18-year-old girl in high school. I worked at a store in the mall of my mid-sized Midwestern city, and that evening I worked a closing shift. I was walking back to my car in the snowy darkness when a black SUV pulled up beside me. A woman opened the window and yelled, "Hey, excuse me, I need your help." She was a round-faced Hispanic woman in her 30s or 40s and spoke with a very heavy accent. I stopped and asked her what she needed. Yes, I know. I wasn't too smart back then. She went into a story about how her sister got into a car accident, and the woman needed to get gas in her car before she could help the sister. However, she could not find a gas station and had no money. She even said she had driven around to several churches to ask for help, but no one would help her. She was difficult to understand and did not tell the story super clearly, but I understood that she needed to find a gas station, and she needed me to pay for it. She told this story between sobs, and she seemed so desperate that I was moved to help her. I told her that she could follow my car to a gas station that was just across the highway and that I would buy her some gas. I worked a lot back then and had a lot of money for an 18-year-old, so I was generous with this. At the gas station, I parked in front of the store, and I was surprised when she did not pull up to a gas pump as I had expected. I got out of my car and said, "Okay, don't you want me to buy and pump gas for you?" She then said something like I had misunderstood her first story. She didn't need gas. She needed money to give to her sister, and added a bunch of other facts I don't remember to continue the story. Her accent and changing story were difficult to understand. I said, "Well, I don't have cash on me, only my card. I suppose I could see if there's an ATM inside." She immediately replied that she knew there was, which is suspicious in hindsight, but I didn't pick up on it at the time. I agreed to go in and get her some money from the ATM, and as I turned to go inside, she said, "Wait, but if you give me money, I will have to repay you somehow. I said, no, that's okay, you don't have to. She said, no, give me your phone number so I can contact you to meet up later so I can repay you, or give me your address and I will send the money to you. I refused both, and she tried again, several more times, begging me to meet up with her later, to give her the money. This probably lasted 5 minutes or so. Finally, as I refused the last time, she said in a very chilling way that I will never forget, "Don't be so nice." Despite all of this, for some reason, I was still convinced she needed my help. I went into the gas station to use the ATM. However, in my teenage wisdom, I could not remember my PIN and was unable to withdraw money. I went back outside to tell the woman, and she rolled her eyes, huffed something under her breath, and very quickly got into her car and sped off. I never saw her again after that. As I drove home, I became suspicious about the scenario. I figured out after a while that the woman was just trying to scam me for money, but it disturbed me more that she tried so hard to get me to meet up with her later and give her contact information. I don't know what she was trying to do, but this has freaked me out ever since, and I wanted to share it here and see what other people think. The week leading up to the Christmas holiday, my family, consisting of one son, a daughter, my wife, and myself, took a last-minute trip to a small outlet mall that placed about 20 miles away from our home. We had 1 or 2 presents left to get, and we knew this place had what we needed. After 3+ hours of shopping, the whole family was beginning to complain about being hungry. The food court contained this little Italian place that had awesome spaghetti and lasagna, so we chose it. It came as no surprise that my son wanted chicken nuggets and fries. They made up a good 95% of his diet. Unfortunately, on this occasion, the Italian food wasn't that good. All 3 of us eating it thought it tasted a little funny. But because we were starving, most of it was eaten. My son, on the other hand, was pleased with his and had me wishing that I would have chosen Chick-fil-A too. Although we didn't like it, none of us felt bad or had any reason to believe anything was wrong with our food. At least no one said so at the time. When everyone finished their meals, we headed home. The following morning, I was awakened around 4:15 with the worst cramps I've ever felt. I noticed my wife was already using our bathroom, so I had to use the one in the hall. The next hour was a living hell of vomiting and diarrhea on levels up to that point unknown. In between explosions, I could hear the sounds of my wife suffering through the paper-thin walls. The idea that we had food poisoning first came up that morning. I was granted a brief reprieve from my sickness, just long enough to go check on my wife and get a drink of water. I also took some to her, but she couldn't keep it down long. Our son came into our room around now to tell us that our daughter was also very ill and had locked herself in the bathroom upstairs. His only concern was that he had nowhere to go pee. I told him to be considerate of others and stop being such a brat. If he needed to go so bad, he could go in the backyard. It was one of the few benefits of being a man. I was planning on saying something else, but the cramps started again, so I had to run back to the bathroom. The whole time I was stuck in that place. The only thing I could think of was, why didn't I go to Chick-fil-A instead? I thought about it, but I knew my girls wanted Italian, so we went there instead. I catch myself doing that a lot. It took some time, but I was able to purge myself of the poisoning. While my stomach remained on the sour side, the need to lock myself in the bathroom had passed. Once again, I checked on my wife and found her condition still terrible. I also knocked on the upstairs bathroom door. When I got no answer, I knocked again and still got nothing. Something told me that this didn't bode well, so I forced myself in and discovered my daughter unconscious on the floor next to a giant puddle of vomit. When I checked her pulse, I could barely feel anything. Trying not to panic, I ran down to my bedroom and grabbed my phone. I dialed 911 as fast as I could and told them my daughter and wife were very sick and my daughter was unconscious. I had completely forgotten about myself. They were my only concern. The 2 ambulances arrived quickly and rushed them both to the hospital. I scooped up my son and we followed in my car. This would be the first long day of many in the coming weeks, and not just for my family. My daughter's illness was found to be the worst and landed her almost 3 weeks in the hospital, some of it in the ICU, while my wife's, though still bad, passed within the week. I was forced to spend the night to take fluids, but compared to them, I got off easy. It would quickly come to light that we were not the only ones to become sick after eating at that place. The rumors spread like wildfire through the hospital that a massive salmonella outbreak had started. These rumors were confirmed a day later when the news reported on the full extent of the spread. At that point, 14 people had been infected. 2 of them, an older couple, passed away the same night we first spent in the hospital. The number would reach 36 infected over the 2 days the restaurant was allowed to stay open. The final death toll was reported to be 11 when the last victim, an 8-year-old girl who had been on life support for 2 weeks, was allowed to pass by the family. As the winter of 2018 became the spring of 2019, life eventually returned to normal, whatever normal is. My wonderful woman had been back home for a couple of months, so we decided to have the Christmas we never got to have. All the presents we had purchased were still sitting in the spare bedroom. The week of Easter seemed appropriate. The rest of the family was invited over for food. All the proper safety measures were practiced the way. We exchanged presents with one another and had an all-around great time. I may be speaking for myself, but it was the best Christmas I'd celebrated in my life. It may go without saying that the little Italian place could never bounce back from all the bad press. They reopened soon after the problem was discovered, but no one would go back, and they soon closed for good. They'd already closed by the time we were able to go shopping at the mall again, and just getting up the courage to do that took a while. Of course, we wouldn't have eaten there anyway. I've learned my lesson. As of the 1st of September, when I'm writing this, we've only been back to the mall once since that nightmare of a meal. Even before stepping foot in the parking lot, eating anywhere in that food court was banned. My daughter has become a vegan since returning from the hospital, and I can't say I blame her. I'd love to have the self-control to go that way myself, but I can't pretend to be something I'm not. These days, on the rare occasions we don't eat at home, 99% of the time, we go to Chick-fil-A, and we've never had a bad meal from there. This has proven to me that I was right to want to go there in the first place.